Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you, depending on whichever part of the world you are tuning from. I'm so excited and grateful for life and pleased to be with you here this morning as we are going to be taking another fresh new look at the financial market. Now, let's run through our daily morning routine. Let's confirm that we are good to go this morning. So, if you can see my screen and you can hear my voice clearly, please let me know in the comment section by typing in hi. Typing in hi makes me know that we are all on the same page and that we can kickstart the session. So, I will be looking forward to your feedbacks, and if there are any issues, if there are distortions, let me know so that I can do the necessary adjustment before we kickstart the session. So I'll be looking forward to some feedbacks while I load up my comment section. We kickstart the session. So I'll be looking All right, so I can see a couple of comments here. I see your comment, Mike 04121990. Good morning to you. 4155, good morning. 1352, good morning to you. 75916783, good morning to you too as well. Danny Love, thank you very much. Hello, Carrie. How are you doing today? Good morning, and I'm very glad to have you around with us this morning. So, with that being said, here I will take this as a confirmation that we are good to go this morning. And it's on this note I welcome you all to yet another promising edition on the X Trend Speed Live. My whole name is Sheriff Daramola, and for the next 1 hour, I'm going to be your host, where we shall be delving into the current market structure with the hopes of identifying potential trading opportunities. And in fact, in preparation for today's trading session, I have conducted a comprehensive price action based technical analysis using simple parameters such as trend lines, key levels, and chart patterns to gain valuable insight into the historical price movement of all of these assets on our watch list. And a quick recap, we have been monitoring four major financial assets since the beginning of the week, which are the US All Spot, the USTech100, popularly known as the NASDAQ. Then we have the GBPUSD, and of course, the XAUUSD, popularly known as the gold spot. So we've been monitoring this asset since the beginning of the week, and in fact, we've been doing pretty well when we look at everything in total. For those who are joining us for the first time, you are highly welcome on board, and I'm very grateful and glad to have you around. And you might be asking that what is really happening here? Well, as technical traders, we come here on a daily basis in anticipation of the New York session, where we come to review our existing position if we have any, while we also manage our position and at the same time prepare ourselves strategically for the New York session. And this, of course, happen on a daily basis, 10 a.m. UTC, 11 a.m. West African time, and I encourage you to stay tuned in to the end of the session, as you do not want to be missing out on any of the interesting ideas I'm going to be sharing with you today. And in fact, please note that the more time you spend with us, the better you get in understanding how this works, and eventually be able to use the information you have gathered here to make your own independent trading decisions. So once again, you are highly welcome on board. Now, with that being said here, let's dive right into the business. And as usual, the first thing we normally do in the morning like this is to check on the economic calendar. And we know that these fundamental factors often manifest on the charts in technical patterns and price movement. By monitoring the economic calendar, we can identify potential correlations between key economic releases and specific technical patterns. And of course, on the economic calendar, we normally focus on high impact event coming in from economic dockets that affect the asset we are looking at. And if we consider the asset we are looking for this week, we are going to be focusing on the United States and, of course, the United Kingdom's economy. Now, for today, Wednesday, September 6th, we have two high impact events to look out for. One is coming from the United Kingdom, and that is the Bank of England monetary policy report hearings. And for those who don't know, this is presented by the Treasury Committee, which is appointed by the House of Commons to examine the expenditure, administration, and policy of HM Treasury, Revenue and Customs, and associated public bodies, including the Bank of England and the Financial Services Authorities. So this is another event majority in the market will be looking forward to, as it will be giving us an insight into the health of the United Kingdom economy and of course their monetary policy ahead of the interest rate decision for this month. Then we also have the ISM Services PMI coming up about 4 to 5 hours from now. And for those who don't know what this is the Institute for Supply Management Services Purchasing Managers Index, and they present a monthly economic indicator that measures the health and activity level of the services sector in the United States, providing us with valuable insight into the overall state of the service-based industry. And of course, generally speaking, a high reading is considered as positive for the US dollar and the economy as well, while a low reading is considered as negative. Now, if we look at the previous data for the month of July, it came in at 52.7. And of course, consensus economists are projecting 52.5 for the month of August. So that means there is an inclination towards a reduced in value in that sector. So we're going to be looking forward to what the actual data is going to be like. Will it be as expected, below expectation, or even beyond expectation? And one thing here is that as technical traders, all we want to be doing right now is to use the timing of this event in conjunction with the structures and patterns we identified on the charts to position ourselves ahead of this event. So with the information we have gathered right now, let's scale into the chart and looking at things from a technical standpoint. So the first asset we are going to be looking at this morning, as usual, is the USOILSPOT, which in fact we had a tremendous bullish momentum yesterday, which finally incited our first position for the week as we saw price action move over 200 pips in our favor before this bearish momentum began. And in fact, if you are taking advantage of that opportunity, you must have been taken out if you moved your stop losses accordingly. Remember, this is what we normally preach in this community, that whenever price moves significantly well, ensure you move your stop losses to secure the position, so that if price goes the opposite direction, the worst case scenario you will be in is on the positive side of your portfolio. Now, before we go into the details of what our expectations will be like today, let's run through how the week started for us here and what led to the idea of buying this asset. Now, if you look at the structure closely, you will see that initially we had a range where price was confined at the beginning of the week. I think this lasted for about 36 hours as price. So I think 48 hours price was trapped within a range that was between the $85.45 level and of course the $85.55 area, to emphasize the level of indecision at that point in time. And you know how we do it in this community. Whenever price action falls into this kind of range, we want to wait patiently for a signal to come, which of course will come either in the form of a breakout of the resistance line or the breakdown of the support line for an opportunity to either buy or sell. And in fact, you saw what happened yesterday. Interestingly enough, we finally saw the breakout of the $85.40 level, giving us our first buy position for the week. And in fact, we were able to scoop in a significant amount of profit on that one. So once again, congratulations to everyone. Kudos to you for being on standby to capitalize on this move. Now, as we head into the New York session today, what is going to be our plans? Since we have a breakout of that channel finally, is this a platform that will be driving the next wave of bullish momentum, or is this going to turn out to be a false breakout? Now, for us to have an idea into what is really going on in this market right now, I would love us to scale up into the 4 hours time frame. Let's refresh our memories as regards to what we saw on that time frame, then come back into the 1 hour time frame to relate what we have there to make an informed trading decisions. So on the 4 hours time frame, remember at the beginning of the week we acknowledged that price action has been bullish since the month of June this year, and in fact we have an ascending trend line in that regard, which of course was broken during the course of last month's trading session. But we saw the breakdown happen right here. Price came back into that bullish platform at the $78 area to incite an uptrend continuation. And in fact, we finally saw the breakout of our key level. Remember, we had a key level for this week, which was situated at the $84 level. And in fact, price broke out of the structure at the beginning of this month. Remember, this level was a strong selling niche at some point in the month of August, as we saw sellers negating all the bullish attempt. But now that we have a breakout of that structure, the potential of an uptrend becomes higher. Now, one thing we said at the beginning of the week is this. Let me show you what we looked at the beginning of the week. So the first thing we noticed is that in the last couple of weeks, price has been finding higher lows in this market, and in fact we connected a series of higher lows. Let me extend this out a little bit to give us this ascending trend line, which of course we agreed that we are going to be using to guide our trading activity for this week. And what this simply means is that as long as price remains above that ascending trend line, we shall feel comfortable buying the US oil spot. Then we also emphasize that since price broke out of the $84 level, that are we going to see a situation where price will come back to retest the structure to incite an uptrend, or is there going to be a trend continuation pattern that will incite an uptrend right away, which is of course what happened yesterday as we saw the breakout of that structure. So now with the information we have gathered on the 4 hours time frame, it will make a lot of sense when we start deliberating on the 1 hour time frame. So let's scale down into the 1 hour time frame. So right now price is at a crucial point, just right around that ascending trend line, as you will see here. So we shall be looking out for patterns that will support an uptrend continuation as long as price remains above that ascending trend line. So let's scale down into the 1 hour time frame to identify setups that we are going to be using to guide our decisions for today. Now, the first thing first here is that we want to acknowledge that resistance line of that channel we identified at the beginning of the week. Remember, I told you we had price trapped within this range during the early hours of the week to emphasize the level of indecision before we saw the breakout of that resistance line to trigger our first buy position. Now, since price broke out of that structure, from a technical standpoint, whenever price breaks out of a key structure such as the $85.45 level, we expect at some point in time price is likely going to come back to retest that structure in anticipation of an uptrend continuation. And in fact, when price came back to retest the structure a couple of hours ago, we begin to see some buy pressure around that area. And one thing that also makes this area very interesting is the fact that it also shares a beautiful confluence with that ascending trend line we identified on the 4 hours time frame. So if the buy pressure above the $85.45 level continues, we will have no other choice than to start looking out for buying opportunities. Now let's talk about the potentials of buyers at this point and what to look out for to join an uptrend continuation. So right now that we have some buy pressure around this area, price is giving us signs that it is about to retest the structure to incite an uptrend continuation. Now, we also want to note that if price remains above our ascending trend line, we shall feel comfortable in that buy position. So I have a level here that we are going to be using to guide our decisions, and that is the $85.90 level. Now, I will be sharing with you in a moment how important that level is, but let me label it first of all. So we have the $85.90 level marked out right here. So you do want to be marking that out on your chart, as we shall be needing it as a reference point to guide our independent trading decisions for today. Now, why is this level important? Now, in the last 24 hours, this level has been a major determinant of price action. You will see right here, it was a buying niche, as you see. That was during the New York session, about 2 hours into the New York session. And later on in the New York session, we saw how sellers found it difficult to break through that level. And not until about 3 hours ago that we saw the breakdown of the structure. So you can see how that level right there has played a major role in determining the direction of price action. Now, with that level marked out, I would like to see price action break out and retest that level to give me an opportunity to join the uptrend continuation. Now, so I want to see buy pressure above this level to capitalize on that uptrend move. And now there are two ways to which we can capitalize on this opportunity. Now, if you have been part of this profitable journey so far this week, that is, you are part of this bullish move where we were able to secure some profit, then you can afford to leverage on the profit you had made so far this week to test waters around that area. So in that regard, placing a buy stop order above the structure will be quite okay, and let's see if this buy position is going to click. And if it doesn't, then we know that we are just using some of the profits we have made so far this week, and we are not even touching our portfolio at all. However, if you are new with us here and this is going to be your first position for this week, and then I will be advising you to remain patient, as you would want to see price break out of the structure first of all. Then as soon as the breakout of that level happens, you scale down to your lower time frame, like the 5, 10 or 15 minutes time frame, to look out for signs that sellers are finding it difficult to drop back below that ascending trend line. And of course, this would reflect on the chart as a retest of structure, continued by pressure around this area to incite an uptrend move. So this is how we are going to be managing buying expectations on the US All Spot for today's trading session. And you can see how important that ascending trend line is on this current market structure. So we continue to look out for buying opportunity as long as price remains above that ascending trend line. Now, in as much as we're looking out for buying opportunity in this market, you know how we do it in this community, we also want to keep tab with the opposite direction. We want to keep our options as open as possible. Remember, the financial market is a fluid environment, and for us to be successful in this market, we want to be as flexible and fluid and dynamic as possible. Now, in this case scenario, what is going to be happening on this chart that will make us change our bias from bullish to bearish? What is it that we are going to see that will give us an inclination that it is time to start thinking of selling? Now, well, if you look at the structure closely, remember we already have an ascending trend line which we spotted on the higher time frame, which of course has been respected in the last couple of weeks, as you will see here. and you know how we use our ascending trend line. If price remains above the ascending trend line, we still remain comfortable in our bullish bias. But if at any point in time price breaks down the ascending trend line, then at that point we want to start considering selling. Now, in this case scenario, to give a visual representation of what I'm talking about here, so I would like to see price slice through both the ascending trend line and the $85.45 level to capitalize on an opportunity to sell this asset. So that is how we are going to be looking out for selling opportunities. And one thing that I will state here is that we are not going to be getting too excited as soon as the breakdown happens. So in that case, we are not having a sell stop order. Instead, we want to exercise patience, wait for confirmations before we jump into that position. Mind you, this market is on a bullish sentiment, and any breakdown of the trend line at this point could still turn out to be a false breakdown. So we will need it to truly be a true breakdown before we jump into a position. And for us to confirm that, we would need to scale down to our lower time frame as soon as price break down the level. Then look out for signs that buyers are finding it difficult to climb back above the ascending trend line, and this of course will reflect on the chart as a retest of structure. It could be the retest of the ascending trend line, retest of the 85.90, or even the retest of the 85.45 area. But most importantly, we want to see signs that buyers are finding it difficult to break above the structure, and at that point we want to start considering selling the US All Spot. So, and we have multiple levels that we can use to maximize this one. In fact, I will mark this one $84.55 level, a level which has been a buying niche, as you will see, since last week Friday at this point. So we would like price to break out, take out all the buy positions there to feel comfortable adding more sell positions to our trade. So this is how we are going to be managing our position on the US All Spot for today. So you do want to be marking out these levels. Very important right here is that ascending trend line and those couple of levels there we identified, we said we will be using to guide our decision for today. So these are my views here on the US All Spot. If you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to let me know in the comment section. So I will be taking the next 10 to 15 seconds to see if there are any questions whatsoever before we move on to the next financial asset. All right. Okay, so I can see a handful of comments in the comment section. Nadizda, good morning to you. Thank you very much. 22192, good morning to you. So I see your comment 2086. It says is new here. Well, to answer your question, well, we here are technical traders where we come together as a community in anticipation of the New York session. So we come here on a daily basis to review our current position and see how well they are doing and how to even manage them at this point, and while we also strategically position ourselves ahead of the New York session, looking out for trading setups that we can use to guide our trading decision. So this is what we simply do here. on a daily basis. And in fact, it might look a little bit complicated at first, but trust me, the more time you spend with us, the better you get in understanding how this works and eventually be able to use this information you have gathered here to make your independent trading decisions. So I encourage you to stay tuned in, be part of the session, follow through with us, and be part of the subsequent session, and you will never regret you did. I'm glad to have you around. I do hope I answered your question, 2086, and once again, you are welcome on board. So in the absence of no questions, I want to assume that we are all on the same page, so we shall be moving right into the next financial asset on our watch list for this week. So the next financial asset on our watch list for today is the USTech100, popularly known as the NASDAQ. And in fact, it is quite intriguing that in the last 48, 60 hours, price action has been going through a choppy situation, especially trading activities has been range bound since the beginning of the week. It has been roller coasters of buys and sells since the beginning of the week. We had an opportunity to buy at some point. Price was taken out at break even. We also had opportunity to sell, and in fact, price did not move further before we were taken out of that position too as well at break even. So this further emphasizes the level of indecision in this market. And of course, remember, we are looking forward to an high impact event from the US economic docket today, which is the ISM Services PMI, which of course is another indicator that the Feds will be looking at, and of course the market participants will be looking out for too as well, as whatever comes in here today is likely going to be affecting the interest rate decision, which is coming up much more later in this month. I think September 20th on the 19th or so. So let's look at what this market has been saying since the beginning of the week and what led to the idea of buying and selling at some point, and what is it that we are going to be looking at as we get prepared for today's trading session. So at the beginning of the week, it was quite clear that price was within a range, and that was within the 15,525 level and the $15,475 level to give us an insight into the level of indecision at that point. And if you remember vividly, at the beginning of the week, I told you that I already had a buy position at this point as price broke out of that resistance line. And I made mention there that for those who had missed out on that opportunity, that let's see if the market will come back, retest the structure to incite an uptrend continuation, which of course it did, as you will see here. A couple of hours into the New York session, we had a retest of structure, and in fact, price moved about 35 pips in our favor. And of course, you know how we do it. As soon as price moves significantly well, we move our stop loss to secure the position, and we were taken out at break even. Then price went on again to break down the support line of that range. We had a breakdown, retest of structure, as you will see here, and in fact price moved about 60-70 pips in our favor before the bullish traction came in again to take us out of that position at a worst case scenario break even. Now, if you look at what has been going on here in the last 60 hours in this market, it is quite clear that we are within an indecisive phase right now, as participants are not sure of where price will be going. As you will see, price is caught and confined within that range. The range has expanded a little further between the 15,450 level, which happens to be our key level for the week, and of course the 15,435 area to further emphasize the level of indecision at this point. Now, with the scenario we have here, what is going to be our plans for today's trading session? What is it that we are going to be looking at? Well, for me personally, what I see here from last week Friday, it is quite clear that buy pressure is noticed around the 15,435 level. So despite the selling pressure we saw during the first half of this week, you will see how sellers have struggled as soon as price got into the 15,435 level. Look at what happened here during the early hours of yesterday. We saw buy pressure resume around this area. Sellers continue to struggle to push price to the downside around that point. And in fact, in the last 4 hours too, we saw buy pressure again resume around this area. So now the question going into the New York session today is, will this 14,435 zone turn out to become a platform that will incite the next wave of bullish momentum? Well, if that is going to be the case, we want to be getting ready to be part of that move. And if we are going to, where is it are we going to be joining? Now, to answer that question, we need to look at some other couple of parameters in this market. Now, one of the parameters we shall be looking at here is, remember that at the beginning of the week, we had this descending trend line, which was spotted since last week Friday. So after connecting the series of lower highs, we have the structure marked out. And in fact, yesterday's trading session was when we saw the breakout of that trend line. And of course, when price breaks out of a descending trend line, it's a sign that the trend line may no longer have the capacity to continue to negate that bullish attempt. And in fact, we saw the breakout happen. And of course, from a technical standpoint, we expect that once a breakout happens, there's chances that price will come back to retest the structure, which you will see it has been going on here for quite a while, buying pressure around the retest of that descending trend line. And I'm of the opinion that sooner or later we are going to be seeing an uptrend continuation. Now, to capitalize on that opportunity, we shall be positioning ourselves just right above the 15,475 to capitalize on that uptrend continuation. So if we have a situation here where price breaks out and retests the structure, let's get ready to be part of an uptrend continuation. And please note that we want to ensure that your stop losses are in place. Remember, so we want to be having a stop loss of say about 35 to 40 pips. Let's ensure your stop loss is around that support line where we have been noticing buy pressure anywhere below that level. And remember that we need to give enough room for price action to break, just in case some volatility could come in to shake out some buyers before price finally moves in the uptrend direction. So that is how we are going to be capitalizing on buying opportunity here. So we are looking at anywhere above the 15,475, and in fact we have multiple levels here to give us entries to maximize the potential move. So we have levels such as the 15,525. We also have our key level for the week at the 15,450, all of which, if price breaks out of the structures, we shall be getting ready to add more position to our existing trade. So these are my views here on the USTech100 on how we are going to be buying this asset for today. Now, in as much as we're looking out for buying opportunity here, considering the strong buying memory we spotted around the 15,435, you know how we do it in this community. We also want to keep tabs with the opposite direction. In as much we're looking out for buying opportunity doesn't mean that we should negate the potentials of sellers. Now, to sell the USTech100 today, what is it that we want to see that will make us negate the idea of buying this asset? Well, for me personally, the only reason why I will be selling this USTech100 is for price action to take out all the buy positions around the 15,435. So I want to see a significant breakdown of that zone to give me an opportunity to sell. Now remember that we are not going to be getting too excited here, neither are we going to be having a sell stop order if you are not profitable before the trade. And the reason is simply very obvious. As you will see, we have had situations where price broke down that structure and it turned out to be a false breakdown, and you saw price climb back to the upside. The same thing also happened about 4 hours ago. So we really need some confirmation here before jumping into that position. So the first thing first here is to cite a breakdown, price closing below that level, and then we look out for confirmations, which of course will reflect on the chart as a retest of structure, continued selling pressure around that area to further give us a confirmation that truly sellers will be dictating the pace. And in fact, if you look at that closely, it also shares a confluence with that descending trend line. So if price drops back below the 15,435, it will have dropped below the descending trend line, and in fact we will be back at the seller's territory and feel comfortable selling around that area. So below the 15,435 is where we shall be looking out for selling opportunities in this market. So you do want to be marking out these levels on your chart, as you will be needing them as reference point to guide your independent trading decisions for today. So let's see how the market will play out here. And in fact, if you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to let me know in the comment section. So I will be taking the next 10 to 15 seconds to see if there are any questions whatsoever before we move on to the next financial asset on our watch list. And you can as well use that time to mark out these levels on your charts, as you will be needing them as a reference point to guide your independent trading decisions. All right. So, in the absence of no questions, I want to assume that we are all on the same page here. So, permit me to move on to the next financial asset. So the next financial asset on our watch list for today is the cable market. That's the GBPUSD. And in fact, we have a dicey scenario here in this market at this point. And remember, it has been roller coasters of buys and sells since the beginning of the week. At some point in time, we had buying opportunities, which we took advantage of, but price did not really move significantly well before we were taken out of that position. The same thing with the selling opportunities we had yesterday, as we sold below the 1.26210, though price moved very well, but it's back within a range at this point. And one thing you will notice about this market is that in the last couple of months, price has been more of a range-bound trading activity in this market. And what does this tell us? It tells us and gives us an insight into the level of uncertainty in this market, as participants are looking forward to interest rate decisions coming up much more later in the week, and of course economic data from the United Kingdom. But things are not looking very rosy in the United Kingdom, as the manufacturing sector is, this interest rate hike is already eating a toll on them, and this is affecting credit facilities and affecting loans and the likes, and things are not looking very rosy at this point. Now, if we are going to be looking at things from a technical standpoint here to give us an insight into the psychology of participants in this market, I would like us to first of all go into how the week started for us and what led into the ideas we had here. Now, the first thing we observed on the 1 hour time frame was our key level, which was situated at the 1.2600 area. Remember, we had our key level just right here. All right, sorry about the breaking transmission here. So we have the key level spotted at the 1.26 area, and for those who have been with us in this community, you know how important our key level is and how it's going to be serving as a yardstick to guide our trading activity for the week. Now, if price remains above our key level, we look out for patterns and structures that supports the idea of buying that asset. And if price drops below our key level, definitely we want to be looking out for selling opportunities. Now, look at what happened at the beginning of the week. We saw price breakout of our key level. Hold on a second. We saw the breakout retest of the key level, which of course triggered my first buy position for the week. And in fact, during our live session on Monday, I told us all that if price comes back to retest the structure, we look out for buying opportunities. It did come anyways, and price moved about. How many pips was that before we were taken out in a loss on that one? We had about 12 pips move before taking out in a loss. And remember, I mentioned that selling opportunities will come if price breaks down the 1.26210 and retests it. Then we want to be joining a bearish move to the downside. And considering the fact that price remains below that descending trend line we spotted at the beginning of the week, it made a lot of sense that we look out for selling opportunities below that structure. So we have been in a sell position since yesterday morning all the way down. Remember, we added more position right here at the 1.2600 level. We also added one more at the 1.25850 level to maximize the potential of that bearish move. And in fact, you must have been taken out of that position by now. I remember telling you yesterday that we should move all our stop losses accordingly to lock in some profit. So well done to those who took advantage of this opportunity. Though the profit wasn't significant, but at least we were able to recoup the loss we incurred at the beginning of the week on this asset. Now, going into the New York session today, what is going to be our plans? What do we expect to see here? How do we intend to buy and how do we intend to sell if the market presents the opportunity? Now, the first thing first we would like to acknowledge here is the fact that price action has been bearish since last week Wednesday. So it's over a week now that we have this bearish momentum, and in fact, to further emphasize the strength of the sellers in this market, we connected the series of lower highs to give us this descending trend line you can see on your screen right now. And you know how we use our descending trend line. As long as price remains below the descending trend line, it makes quite a lot of sense to look out for selling opportunity. So that is one factor here that we want to be marking on our charts. And secondly, we saw here that as soon as price tested that lowest point at the 1.25300 level, that was yesterday morning, we saw buy pressure resume around that area, and in fact price action evolved into finding higher lows in this market, and as a result we have an ascending trend line to work with. Now, is this going to be a momentum that will be a foundation for a bullish move? Well, personally, when I look at the structure after considering the strong impulsive move in this market, coupled with that impulse leg we saw here yesterday, I'm of the opinion that this move right here, this bullish move we're seeing here, the higher highs and higher lows here, is more or less going to be a retracement of that impulsive move, since price still remains below our descending trend line to incite a downtrend continuation. And one more thing here that buttresses the idea of a retracement is the fact that you will see that ever since price broke down that support line there at the 1.258, buyers have found it difficult to break out of this level. Look at what happened here during the New York session. Look at what happened here during the early hours of today. You will see how it has become difficult for buyers to break out at that level. And in fact, at this point, it's going to be a red flag that the potential of a downtrend continuation is getting manifested. Now, for me to sell the GBPUSD today, I would want to actually see a breakdown of this 1.25300 area. This is the lowest point price action has been so far this week. Remember, we saw buy pressure around that area. Now, I will need price to break down that structure to the downside, take out all the buy positions there to establish another wave of bearish momentum for me to join selling opportunities here. However, if you look at the distance between where price action is right now and that support line, it is roughly about 30 pips in distance. And in that case scenario, I'm not comfortable waiting for the breakdown to happen. So I don't want to miss out on that 30 pips move. So instead, I want to be looking out for patterns and structures that will give me signs that a bearish momentum is gradually building up so that I can join that bearish move even before the breakdown of the 1.25300 level happen. Now, what is it that I'm going to be looking at here to help me capitalize on that opportunity? So we have an ascending trend line here, remember, and in addition to that ascending trend line is this level here at the 1.256, which has been a major has played a major role in determining the direction of price action in the last 24 hours. So what I want to see here is a breakdown of the structure, price coming back to retest the structure. All I want to see here is signs that buyers are finding it difficult to climb back above that ascending trend line and the 1.256. And if this happens, I will continue to look out for selling pressure to join that decline to the downside. And of course, a breakdown of the 1.253 will be welcoming more opportunities to sell this asset. So that is how I'm going to be looking out for selling opportunities for today on the GBPUSD. However, if price action climbs up a little bit into that as descending trend line, selling pressure around this area could also incite a downtrend continuation as long as price still remains below that descending trend line, as you will see here. Now, in as much as we're looking out for selling opportunities as well, we cannot ignore the potentials of buyers too as well, as of course we also want to look at the potential of this ascending trend line here. Is it going to create that momentum that will do a final breakout of that trend line? That is a question we want to be asking ourselves, but time will tell. Now, for me to buy the GBPUSD today, I need price to take out that trend line, and of course you see how the trend line also shares a confluence with that barrier at the 1.25850. So a breakout retest of this zone should be a good opportunity to join an uptrend scenario here. So you can see how simple the setup is. So we have the 1.25850 where the breakout of that level would have broken out of that descending trend line, hereby giving us an opportunity to buy. And if that is not the case, a breakdown of the 1.256 will be a good opportunity to sell. So we want to be marking out this level as our center of focus is between the 1.25850 and the 1.25300 area, where depending on how price reacts to the zone or breakout of the zone will determine where price action will be going, at least for the second half of this week. If you have any questions regarding this current setup, feel free to let me know in the comment section, and trust me, I am willing and ready to be of help in that regard. So I will be taking the next 10 to 15 seconds to see if there are any questions whatsoever before we move right into the last financial asset for today. All right, so in the absence of no questions, I want to assume that we are on the same page here. So we shall be moving right into the last financial asset on our watch list for this week. So the last asset on our watch list for today is my favorite commodity, and that is the XAUUSD, popularly known as the gold spot. And in fact, in the last 48 hours, 60 hours, we have been doing pretty well on the XAUUSD. Remember, we have been selling since the beginning of this week on this asset, and in fact we should be having a minimum of about 3 positions running at this point in time. So let's run through what has really went on this week and what led to the idea of us selling this asset. So at the beginning of the week, we acknowledged on the 1 hour time frame our key level, which was duly situated at the 1950 area. That was the highest point price action has been in a long time, and we saw how selling pressure resumes below that level. And of course, you know that when price remains below our key level, we look out for patterns and structures that support the idea of selling that asset. Now, in addition to that, one was this range where we saw at the beginning of the week, we saw our price was confined within the $1,946 and of course the $1,939.50 level to emphasize the level of indecision at that point in time. And for the fact that price is within a range, it further tells of how uncertain participants in the market are at this point in time. And you know how we do it in this community. Whenever we have this kind of range like this, we want to exercise patience, waiting for price action to either break out of the support line or the resistance line for an opportunity to trade. Now, we saw what happened here on Monday. We saw, despite the public holiday, the US economy wasn't open because of the Labor Day on Monday. We saw low liquidity, though we had an insight into where price wants to be going for the week. So we had the breakdown of the $1,939.50 level, which triggered our first sell position for the week. And of course, we had multiple levels that we agreed on that we shall be using to maximize the potential of this bearish move. So we had the breakdown of the 1935 level. We also added more position at the breakdown of the 1929. I can't remember if I mentioned the 1926 yesterday or this came up much more later during the New York session. So at least you should be having a minimum of 3 positions running in profit right now. And if we take an accumulation of the number of pips that is, so the first position is currently running with about 135 pips in profit, while the second position right here is running with about 90 pips in profit. That's roughly about over 200 pips, while the third position here is running with about 32 pips in profit. So as at the first half of the week, we are already cruising with over 200 pips in profit on this single sell move. And for those who took advantage of this opportunity, well done to you for being on standby to capitalize on this move. Now, the next thing we want to be doing right now, you know how we do it in this community. As soon as price moves significantly well in our favor, we do want to be moving our stop losses to secure this current sell position. And from the look of things right here, I want to give enough room for price action to breathe. So I will be suggesting that anywhere around the $1,928.90 level and of course the $1,931.50 level seems most appropriate to lock in profits in this market. Remember, we do want to give enough room for price action to breathe in such a way that we could still have some retracements before the bearish trend continuation happens. So with a well secured position at this point in time, what is going to be our next line of action for today? Are we going to continue selling the XAUUSD or are we going to be getting ready to buy? Now, because price action has been bearish in the last 3 to 4 days in this market, let's talk about the potentials of sellers first of all. Now, the first thing first we want to acknowledge here, we've been acknowledging this since the beginning of the week, is this descending trend line. Remember, we spotted this after connecting the series of lower highs since last week, Friday. And as you will see here, price has consistently and uniformly respected that trend line, pushing price to find new lows and new lower lows and lower highs. And as long as price remains below our descending trend line, you know that we always want to be looking out for selling opportunities. Now, with the situation we have here, looking at what has been going on in this market since the early hours of today, you would notice that we begin to see some buy pressure around between the 1926 and the 1923 area to emphasize some potential of buying opportunities gradually unfolding behind the scenes. Now, one thing about this buy pressure is that it could be a retracement of that bearish impulse leg, of course, where price could still come back into the trend line exactly around the 1929 area, where selling pressure, the resumption of selling pressure around this area could incite a trend continuation to the downside. So this is one way we shall be looking out for selling opportunities. So if this buy pressure here pushes price into the 1929 area, you remember we've secured our position above the zone, we shall remain patient to see how the market would react to that trend line. If selling pressure resumes and we begin to see signs that buyers are finding it difficult to break out of that trend line, then it is likely that the trend line is still strong enough to negate bullish attempts, hereby welcoming the idea of selling again or adding more position to our existing trade. And if price action goes on to break down the 1924 level, I would like to add more sell position to my existing trade. So that is how we're going to be looking out for selling opportunity from this current market structure we have on the chart right now. Now, in as much as we're looking out for selling opportunities here, we cannot ignore the potentials of buyers. As you will see right now, in the last 12 hours, sellers have been struggling between the 1926 and the 1922.50 level, giving us an idea of the presence of buyers around that area. Are the market participants seeing price of the gold cheap enough to buy right now, or is it that we are waiting for the consumer what's it called, ISM services PMI data from the United States coming up later today to give us an insight into what to do? Maybe, but the fact here is price is within a range right now where an indecision is going on at this point. So if it turns out that the buy pressure we're seeing here will become manifested, then a breakout of the descending trend line and the 1929 will be all we need as a signal to get ready to join a momentum shift. And for those who, there are two ways to which you can capitalize on this opportunity actually. For instance, the first one for those who have been profitable on the XAUUSD so far this week. So if you have been profitable on the XAUUSD, you can afford to leverage on some of the profits you had made so far to test waters above the $1,929 area to see if that buy position will click. And if it doesn't, we know that we are only using the some of the profit we have made so far this week and not touching our account portfolio. And that is that for those who are profitable so far. However, if you are joining us for the first time, that is on the XAUUSD, you are coming in from a clean slate, then I will be advising you to exercise some patience when price breaks out of both the descending trend line and that level at the 1929 area. Now, what you are going to be doing now once price break out of that structure, scale down to the lower time frame, the 5, 10, or 15 minutes time frame to look out for confirmations that truly buyers are going to be dictating the pace. And all we want to be seeing here are signs that sellers are finding it difficult to drop back below that descending trend line. And of course, this would reflect on the chart as price coming back to retest and continue buy pressure welcomes a buying opportunity in this market. So that is how we are going to be buying. And in fact, we have multiple levels like the 1935, $1,939.50 level to maximize this bullish momentum if price action ever breaks out of that level. So this is how we are going to be managing our position on the XAUUSD for today. So I hope I was able to make justice to this one. Our center of focus for today right now is between the $1,929 level and the $1,924 area, where depending on where the breakout happens is likely going to be dictating the pace and direction of price action for the later part of this week. So these are my views here on the XAUUSD. So you do want to be marking out these levels on your chart, as you will be needing them as a reference point to guide your independent trading decisions for today. So before I draw the curtain on this live session, I would like to know if there are any questions as regards to all the assets we talked about today. If there are, please let me know in the comment section. Trust me, I'm here and willing to be of help in that regard. So let's see what we have, if we have any questions before we draw the curtain for today. All right. So in the absence of no questions, I want to assume that we are all on the same page here. And in fact, it has been a wonderful 1 hour session here, as we were able to take on all the assets on our watch list for today, which includes the USOILSPOT, the USTech100, the XAUUSD, popularly known as Gold Spot, and of course the GBPUSD, all of which we were able to identify simple setup using simple parameters such as trend lines, key levels, and chart patterns to identify potential trading opportunities ahead of the New York session. So I encourage us all to be very patient. Let's allow our setup to manifest before we jump into any position. And I'm very confident that we are well equipped as we simulated all the potential trading opportunities that might likely come out from this current market structure. So let's see how this will work out for the next 24 hours, and we shall be back right here again tomorrow to review how well this is doing. For those who joined us for the first time today, hope you are able to gain one or two things from what we discussed right here. And trust me, the more time you spend with us, the better you get in understanding how this works, and eventually be able to use the information you have gathered here to make your own independent trading decisions. So I still look forward to seeing more of you tomorrow, same time tomorrow, 10 a.m. UTC, 11 a.m. West African time, as we come here again to review how well these assets have been doing, and at the same time get ready for tomorrow's trading session. Do have a wonderful evening, everyone. Bye-bye.